Hi guys, and welcome to the channel. Big day for the Bronco today. We're installing the factory Ford 7-pin towing harness on the Bronco today. But let me show you what we're working with. Recently, Ford released the factory 7-pin harness plug and play for the Bronco to retrofit a full tow harness to the Bronco. And I'm going to show you these part numbers. This part number here is for the 7-pin harness. We also ordered the factory Ford trailer brake control for the cab, and that's the part number for that. We're going to unbox these, show you what's all inside. We're going to show you how this is installed. It looks fairly simple. There's some plug pins that need modified a little bit. That may be a little tricky. We will see. Now, here are also the full print instructions for both of those part numbers. You'll have to print those out if you want to go by paper instructions. Now the instructions don't say to do this, but the first thing I'm going to do is jack this side of the Bronco up and take the tires and wheels off to make it easier to run the wires and work on the plugs that are up under this fender well. So we're going to get this jacked up. We're going to get the tires and wheels off of this side to make it easier to work on. So one of the first steps is we have to access this area behind this panel to install the factory tow control module. First thing we're going to do though is get these unboxed and show you what's inside of these boxes and what we get with these part numbers. Okay guys, so these are the parts that are included in the factory Ford trailer brake control for the in-cab. This is the actual unit right here. This is a Red Arc Tow Pro Elite. This gets mounted somewhere in the area behind the glove box. The only thing that you'll see when the installation is done is this knob, this control knob. Here's the bezel. They give you a nice bezel for the knob. This is the template. This goes on the center console is where they tell you to put it. They give you a nice template so you get your hole drilled in the right place. It comes with an owner's manual that will stay in your glove box. A few pieces of miscellaneous hardware. This is a riv nut. That's for the mounting of the Tow Pro. They give you some zip ties, a double-sided adhesive pad, some type of foam insulation pad, alcohol wipe. This is the harness right here that goes between the controller and the control knob. And this is the harness here that goes between the controller and the factory plug that is located in the vicinity of the accelerator pedal that's already on the Bronco. So as you can see, it's all plug and play. The most time-consuming part is taking apart some of the interior trim pieces and routing. Nothing really difficult here, just a little time-consuming, that's all. Now, some people will tell you that, hey, the Bronco is only rated for 3,500-pound towing capacity. You don't need a brake controller in the cab. That may be true in some cases, depending on what you're pulling. The trailer I plan on acquiring will be between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds, fully loaded, and we're going to be taking this off-road. So I think it's a good idea to have a manual controller where you can adjust the braking force from the cab depending on your situation. For a couple $100 more, now you've got the full complete tow package. You're loaded. You've got a 4-pin plug, a 7-pin plug, and a dedicated brake controller. all from Ford. So this gives you the full factory tow package for your Bronco. I think this is much better than what's been out there for the Bronco so far. It's much better than what I purchased in the first place. And so we're going to start getting these parts on the Bronco so we can do a little off-grid camping next year. So let's get this install started. So we've made a little bit of progress on the harness install. You want to disconnect your negative battery wire from the battery. I've put a little piece of cardboard in there to keep them from touching. And we've gained access to where our module will go. I'll show you what this looks like back here. Those 3 plugs are plugged into just a piece of plastic. It's just like a dummy holder. Those will unplug from there or unattach from there, and that dummy will come out and the module will bolt in, and we'll show you what that looks like when we get that done. But to gain access to that, you need to take some trim panels apart. There's a seal panel that goes across the back. That has to come out. These bolt holes right here hold your tie down points on. They all have to come out so the floor can come out. This piece here on the other side that bolts there, that comes off. There's a trim piece around the roll bar that comes off, and then this big panel pops off. Now take your time with that. There's a lot of, as you can see, there's a lot of clips that hold that on. Nothing is broken that I can find. You'll have a plug that you'll need to disconnect from that. It says antenna. I don't know, some type of antenna. That's this plug hanging right here. Unplug that and then lay your panel down. It's totally free from the truck, and then you can gain access to that. So we're going to go ahead and get those unplugged to pull that dummy off, get the new module installed, and we'll show you what that looks like. Okay guys, so this is the dummy plug that just pulls right off one of those studs. There's no nut or anything holding that on. Just pulls right off one of those threaded studs. And then this is your actual trailer brake or trailer wiring control module. I don't know exactly what you call it, but the wiring is already here. The plugs are already here. You just bolt it down to those 3 threaded studs and plug the 3 existing harnesses into that, and you're good to go. So that's about as easy as you can get. All the wiring is here. No splicing needed. Now I will say, if you look at that nut, now in the directions, these are supposed to be flange nuts. These are just plain nuts. So I used some washers because the holes are kind of big. They're slotted. They're a little oversized in the metal bracket. So get yourself some small metric washers and use those under those nuts. So that's really it for the wiring on the inside of the Bronco, except of course for the trailer brake controller. But if you're not installing a trailer brake controller, believe it or not, you're done inside the Bronco, which that's amazing. So all we have to do now is put all our trim pieces back in place, get those where they need to go, get everything bolted up, and we can start running our harness back from our receiver here to the front up under the left fender well where the rest of the electrical connections take place. So much better than really any other thing that's on the market right now. This is the way to go, to give yourself that 4 and 7 pin harness like it would have been if you would have ordered this tow package from the factory. So that's really cool. What a great piece. I'm glad I waited. And for those of you who are thinking about doing this, this is really the way to go. So, okay guys, so we have our trailer brake control module installed inside the Bronco. We've taken the left side tires and wheels off, jack stands under the Bronco. The next step is to take down these inner fender wells, the liners. The rear has to come completely off. Take all those fasteners down. Pull that inner fender liner out. We've already got our plug mounted in our receiver. We got the wire, the harness plugged into it, ready to run from the back to the front. I changed out this bolt. The bolt they gave us, I don't really care for it. That's a nice flange bolt, gold anodized. That should last a while. So that's on. It's all factory. There's your 7 plug. There's your 4 plug. So when this is done, this is going to look just like it would if you would have ordered it from the factory. So let's get our liners pulled down or loosened up, and we'll start running our harness.
Okay, as you can see, we've taken off the wheels and tires on the left side of the Bronco, and we've gone ahead and taken out the inner fender liners. These are the 2 plugs that you're looking for. All right, now if you have a 21 or a 22, you're going to follow the same thing that I'm doing. If you have a 23, it's a little different. You don't have to do quite as much, but these are fastened. You just pull the fasteners out and they pull free, and we'll be unlocked. They're already unlocked. We'll be separating those here in a little bit. Now they recommend in the instructions not to take this front liner the whole way out. I recommend to take it the whole way out. They just want you to take the back part loose and then bend it forward. It's going to be in your way. And there's some wiring, there's some work to do on these plugs. So you don't want to be fighting anything while you're working on this wiring. So it's just as easy to take a few more fasteners, clips out, and it pulls completely free. There's some screws to hold it in also. We've done the same with the back. Now the back is taken out so you can route your wiring where it needs to go. But that liner is now taken the whole way out. And like I said, they don't tell you to take the wheels and tires off, but I highly recommend it so you're not working around the tires. You don't have to deal with those. So that's where we're at right now. We're getting ready to take our plugs apart and run our harness from the back to the front.
Okay guys, so we have our harness routed from the back of the Bronco to the front of the Bronco. This is the end that we're going to be working on. We've got the plugs apart. We're going to be working on both the gray and the black plugs. But first I'm going to try to show you. So this is your harness. As you can see, there's factory style clips that pop into the frame. There's holes in the frame. They go right in there just like factory. Goes up over the muffler. You can kind of see how that's routed. Up over the muffler, goes on top of the frame. There's a good shot. You can see the foil. That's heat wrap because you're near the muffler on this. And they want you to route it up over your fuel filler hose and zip tie it. Then it goes back behind the frame again where there's factory clips, clip into the frame, and it comes back over the frame right here in front of your shock tower. Now I want to show you this grounding location. I don't know if you can see that. They give you a bolt. Now in the instructions it'll show a nut on top of the frame. The nut is actually welded to the back side of this frame, and there's also a hole for the tab on the ground eyelet. So that tab goes in the hole, and then the screw goes into the hole and threads in to the nut. Zip ties to the body mount, and then it runs along the outside of the frame with the existing loom. The existing loom is on the bottom, the tow harness is on top, and it runs the whole way up the frame. Everywhere where there was a factory clip for the harness that's already on the frame is where I put a zip tie. You want to make sure it's secured well to that loom that's already attached to the frame. It looks very good, very, very neat, very factory. Comes up around right here where it gets a little skinnier. Just zip tie it to the existing wiring harness. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. I'm comfortable doing this. Some people might not be comfortable working on these harness plugs, but for a 21 and a 22, there's some repinning that needs to take place. The 23s, I think there's less work to do. So it's going to be kind of hard for me to film this. All I'm going to say is I'm going to show you, this is the before, I'll show you what it looks like afterwards, but these do need to come apart. There's some work to do with the repinning, like I said, and you put it back together, and then you can get your fender liners back in. The directions are pretty clear. You might want to read them 2 or 3 times to understand about this repinning. But it's pretty straightforward. I don't think it's going to be that difficult. I will let you know when I finish it how bad it was or how easy it was or if it didn't go well. So that's where we're at. We've got our harness in place. We just have to repin those plugs, get them back together, get our liners back in place, and the job is done. If you don't want to put a trailer brake controller in your cab, you're finished, you're done. You've got 4 and 7 pin capability. Now, I will say that they tell you that you have to take this to the dealer to get the ECU or the module configured so everything knows, you know, what you've done. I don't know, you know how it is. It's complicated. They hook it up. They can reprogram. Now, I understand it can be done with 4Scan. I don't have a 4Scan tool. I'll probably take it to the dealer. I also have to get the airbag module recalibrated for the factory Ford winch that we put on. I want to get an alignment checked because we put the 1 1/4" leveling kit on. It's due for a state inspection. So we're just going to take it to the dealer, and they should be able to take care of all of that with no problem. Okay guys, we're getting down to it now. We're working on the repinning process. It's pretty straightforward. The white wire, on the gray plug, you only have to do one modification. The white wire from the 7-pin harness You have to take this plug apart. The instructions show you how to do it. And all the unused spaces on the plugs have a dummy plug or a port plug in them. It has to be knocked out and the white wire inserted. It already has the correct end on it. The other plug, you have to cut off the factory ends that came with the harness, and they give you these 5 pigtails with the correct ends on them, and you have to install them with butt connectors. They give you the butt connectors, and I'm going to go ahead and then install shrink tubing over each one of these individually, heat shrink that, and then I'm probably going to use a big piece of heat shrink and shrink them all together to give you a nice, neat job. The instructions for this, the gray plug, pretty straightforward. The black plug, what we're working on right now, this is the black plug. In the instructions, it tells you to knock out one of these middle end dummy plugs. And I don't know why, because you don't even use that. I don't know if you can see. Let's see if we can get this pulled back a little bit. You see the 5 in the center. You'll see that I've removed the dummy plugs. Those are the 5 that need taken out. I left the one that showed instructions in because we're not using it. And that helps to keep dirt and crud out of the backside of these plugs. So they're a little off on the directions there. That's why I say study these. It didn't make any sense to me, so I kept studying. And said, oh, okay, yeah, we don't take that out. We take these 5 here out. And it'll clearly show you where these new ends go into the back of this plug, and that's how you'll know which dummy plugs to pull out. So I found that this doesn't kind of jive with the instructions, but that's okay. You're going to need a small pair of needle nose pliers. At least I did for that white one, to get it in as far as it needs to be. A little tough to get that in there. Like I said, if you're not familiar, if you're not comfortable wiring and working on these plugs like this, taking these plugs apart and repinning, I wouldn't attempt this. It's not that difficult, but you need to feel comfortable doing this and have a little bit of knowledge of how this works. So where we're at now is I've got the ends swapped out, as you can see. We're going to go ahead and finish making these real nice with some individual heat shrink tubing and then probably a big piece, and get it all tidied up and neatened up. And then we are going to put the ends in this plug. And at that point, we can put our plugs back together and we can start to put our fender liners back together. Here's what I'm talking about right here. This step right here, they're saying just to take that end one out, and that's, I don't know why, because that's unused. If you flip a couple pages, it shows you exactly where these go into this plug, and they don't go in any of the end spaces. So keep that in mind. Read ahead. I suggest going through these instructions 2 or 3 times to get yourself familiar with what you're going to be doing before you start doing it. Other than that, we're good. Okay, guys, we have the plugs all wired up and ready to go. I found a major mistake in these directions. Step 48. If you do it that way, assuming that's the back of the plug, you are going to have all kind of problems, because the wires go in the back of the plug. You would assume that that's the back of the plug. That's the right orientation if you are looking at the front of the plug. Being the cautious person that I am, I made sure to check my existing plug, and you can see you have your brown, blue, yellow, green, and red wires, and they just weren't matching up when I did it this way. So common sense would tell you that your brown, blue, yellow, green, and red need to match up with the same colors on the corresponding plug. And now they do. So be very cautious. Do not go by that drawing. It is wrong. And you are going to be scratching your head when you put that, if you do it that way and you put this Bronco back together, it is not going to work. It's just not going to be right. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not going to be right. So we have it in the right. I'm going to show you what it's supposed to look like. The green and the yellow-white wires at the top, the smaller wires, they are existing. And that's how the back of that plug should look when you're done. And as you can see, assuming that that is the back, and it should be because the wires go in the back, that is not what we have here. It's reversed, and it's just not right. So keep that in mind. Big mistake, Ford, on those instructions. Big mistake. So the next step is to get these mated back up with the corresponding plugs, get everything tidied up, zip tied, fastened, and ready to put the fender liners back in. Not a hard job, but big mistake on those instructions. We've got our wiring all tied up, zip tied to the existing loom. Plugs are back in place. Everything's all good. Okay guys, our harness plugs are back in place. All the harnesses are zip tied back up. Everything's nice and neat and out of the way. I went ahead and temporarily connected the battery back up and took a test light to the 7 plug. Everything is working except the 12-volt power that will go to the trailer when the truck is running, and the electric trailer brake terminal. I had no power, either one of those in any situation. My theory is, like I said, you have to go in to the truck's computer and let it know that you've installed the trailer harness module, we'll call it, that we put in first. I believe that has to be programmed for that, and then we should have both of those functions working. But everything else is working. The the stop, turn, running lights, backup lights even work. So I'm confident that it's wired correctly. I just think it needs a little programming, and we're going to do that. The next step is to get the inner fender liners put back in. Like I said, I'm going to rotate. These tires are due for rotation. I'm going to rotate the tires, and then we're going to start on the trailer brake control for the cab. That's going to be next. If you're not going to install one of those, why, thanks for watching. If you want to follow along and see how that goes, why, by all means, follow along. And we're going to let you know also, before we publish this video, I will take it to Ford, and we're going to have the modules programmed along with the airbag module, since we put this winch up front. But all in all, I would say the 7-pin harness, not a bad job. The instructions a little fuzzy. Like I showed you that one section real bad. Do not follow those. That's an oversight. They need to fix that and I guarantee you there's going to be people that follow that, and they're not going to check to see, check the other side of the plug, and they're going to put it together that way, and it's all going to be wonky for sure. It's going to be backwards. It's just not going to work like it should, and you're going to be scratching your head. That's a big no-no on that, and I probably should contact somebody at Ford if anybody cares. Maybe get the note to the proper people that, if they don't already know it by now, that there's a mistake in those directions. But all right, on to the next step. We'll get those liners on, get the wheels rotated, and start the trailer brake controller for the cab. So guys, welcome to the second part of the factory tow package installation on the 2021 Ford Bronco Badlands. I'm going to show you the part number that you're going to want to buy. This is the factory in-cab brake controller. There's your part number. These are the instructions. They give you a glove box instruction manual. This is the module. This is a Red Arc Tow Pro Elite. This is what you'll get when you order the Ford factory brake controller, trailer brake control module for the in-the-cab control. This is all plug and play. This end plugs into an existing plug near the accelerator pedal. This plug goes into one of the sides of the Red Arc. And then this harness goes from the Red Arc controller. This part gets hidden near the behind the glove box. One end of this harness goes to that hidden module. The other end goes to this nice little lighted switch that goes in the center console. This is the surround bezel for that. They give you a piece of foam, piece of double-sided adhesive tape, a alcohol wipe. This is the template that shows you where to drill your hole for your switch and your center console. We have a rib nut and a screw to help hold the module on, and some zip ties. We've gone ahead and taken a couple trim pieces off. That's our center console grab handle. That's a piece of trim that goes in front of the center console. We've taken our glove box out already. We've removed that. As you can see, we've got our glove box out. We've got the grab handle off, and that piece of trim is up under here that just snaps off. The next step is we need to lift off the top of the center console so we can start to run our wires, and our knob will go on the driver's side of the center console here to the left of the window controls. So that's the factory location. That's where they want you to put it, so that's where we're going to put it. We're going to install this per instructions. This should all be plug and play. And when we're done, we should have a brake signal. Now, this module for the 7-pin harness that we installed with that has not been programmed yet, but all the lights are working. And when we install this today, we should have a brake signal. And I think the only thing that will not be working on that 7-pin is a 12-volt charge. And I think we need to get that module programmed to get that 7-pin charge. Okay guys, so we have the top of the center console pulled off. It just pops right up with no problem. Now in the instructions they tell you to take that the whole way off, which means your shifter boot and knob are going to have to come off. I find with the manual, I don't believe we're going to have to do that. It lifts up far enough and it's very maneuverable. We should be able to work around it without unplugging anything or taking anything else off, so we'll see. So as you can see, we have our template taped in place. It's kind of hard to see the writing with the light on the camera, but we have to drill two 3/16" holes and then one 1-inch hole. I have a 1-inch hole saw for that, and then that's all the holes we'll need to drill in the center console. So we'll get those drilled and we'll show you what that looks like. So this is what it should look like after you're done drilling your holes. We have a 1-inch hole and a half a hole at the top of your 1-inch hole, and that keeps your bezel from spinning in the hole, and it just snaps in just like so. And that's what that'll look like. I think that's in a great spot. That's where the instructions tell you to put it. And I think that's, you know, your hand's going to go right there easily as you're driving if you have to adjust the trailer brakes at all. So there you go. That's what that looks like. On to the next step. We'll start running our wires up through and get this thing connected. So as you can see, we have our knob mounted in the bezel and the console, and we have that harness fished through the center console. It comes out at the glove box opening. We'll show you that in a second. And then we have the other part of the harness installed near the accelerator pedal. You're going to find this dummy terminal plug. You want to take that out of its slot where this pops in and snap the harness into the end that you find there. And then this will get fished across also to the glove compartment opening. This gets discarded, although I keep all these parts. So here's the harness coming from the knob. And then, like I said, the other part of the harness will get fished across, and it will also come out here. And then we can start the installation of the module. So guys, we have both of our harness ends routed over to the glove box opening. The one that comes from the plug near the accelerator pedal is a little big, so you're going to have to take it down under here and up through. You won't see the harness when everything's done. The smaller one here can go in pretty much from this direction here. So that's it. Not too difficult. You just have to play with it a little bit till you get the routing right. Now we have to install the module, and you're going to see a hole right there by my finger, right underneath that harness. That's where the rib nut goes. We have the unit mounted up where it's supposed to go. I loosened this loom up to make it easier to access that screw hole that they want you to use. So this is really tight in here, so it's going to be tough with the camera, but there you can see one screw, and that double-faced, double-sided tape holds that on. I found that to route the wire, this piece of ductwork, I took it out to make it easier to get the harness routed right, so it had enough slack to plug in to the module. So they give you some kind of foam adhesive to put on this side of the controller for some reason. So what's left to do now is to we'll put this harness back up in, or we'll get this foam piece on the front side of that, and we'll get this ductwork put back in and get all our cables tied up out of the way so they're not pinched or anything in the center console. But we gave it a quick check, and we do have a brake signal. Now I do want to show you one thing. This is a trailer emulator from Taconcha, and I was not getting anything at the control knob until I plugged this in. So in order to, this is not just a test plug or light. It does that too, but this is a little more expensive than just a test plug. I do not have a trailer yet with trailer brakes, And so this is nice if you're in the garage and you don't have to hook your trailer up. You can test your circuits. So we plug this in and we are getting a brake signal, and we are getting power to the knob. It lights up and you can change modes. So this is handy. If you don't have a real big shop where you can't get your truck and trailer in, or if you don't have a trailer yet, or this is just nice to have to troubleshoot to see what's going on if you have a problem with one of your circuits. But it was okay. That riv nut was a fail. It's just too tight up in there to be able to use my inexpensive riv nut tool. So I used, I believe it's a 1032 or a 1024 screw with a nut on the backside, and taking this piece of ductwork out also helps you get to the backside of that steel bracket to get a wrench on that nut. Not ideal, but I was able to get to it. It's solidly mounted. Don't have to worry about that going anywhere. So all we have to do now is put everything back together and we're good to go.